The Trail, Chapter 24. The next morning, I wake to thick fog. A cold wind presses against the tent. I close the vestibule to get an extra bit of warmth while I dress. Unlike the hot, sticky mugginess of the day before, this day promises to be wet and chilly. A black nose appears in the tent the second I unzip it. I have to push Moose back so he doesn't invade my sleeping bag. He's clean, but he still smells like a damp dog. Sean is on the platform stirring oatmeal into a pot of boiling water. There's a storm coming, he says as I clamber out of my tent. How can you tell? I break out 2 Cliff Bars and a hunk of cheddar cheese. I toss one of the bars to Moose. I check the weather forecast at the hut this morning. Gusts on Washington are going to be over 60 miles an hour, and the wind chill is expected to get to about 20 degrees. But it was so hot yesterday. I can't believe there could be such a huge difference in temperature in less than 24 hours. Sean shrugs. Welcome to the Whites. He takes out a jar of peanut butter and adds a couple of spoonfuls to the oatmeal mixture. We eat our breakfast in silence. Where's Denver? I ask as I finish off the last of my cheese and crumble empty wrappers into my food bag. He left early this morning. He told me to meet him on top of Mount Washington. Wanted to do the last bit of hiking by himself. That's right. You two are finishing your trip today. I feel a twinge of sadness. Denver and Sean have saved me on that rain-drenched day when I had nearly given up. Without them, I would probably have quit the trail. But now they're leaving. I will really be on my own. I lick my bowl and spoon clean, then tuck them back in my pack. After breaking down my tent, I stop by the hut quickly to say goodbye to Abby. I call to Moose, and as we turn back down the trail, I see Sean. He has a scowl on his face. Hurry up, he says. When I tell him he doesn't have to wait for me, his scowl deepens. Normally, I'd agree. I hate waiting for you. But you're not hiking in this weather by yourself, he says curtly. He turns his back to me and starts hiking. I grin and follow. I follow him with Moose not far behind. A mile later, the rain begins. We pause in a moment to shrug into our raincoats, and I ask Sean a question that I had been wondering about since the morning. Did you know about Denver's older brother? Yeah, Denver worshipped him. Sean turns his head to the side, puts a finger over a nostril. He exhales hard, and a snot rocket flies out of the side of the trail. Gross. COVID. When Harry disappeared, Denver nearly went crazy with guilt. How long ago was that? Sean clears the second nostril. Ew. Come to think of it, this is exactly a year to this day that Harry ran away. He goes utterly still for a moment. I have a bad feeling about this. Maybe I shouldn't have let Denver hike by himself this morning. I'm sure he's fine, I say. Nevertheless, Sean hitches up his backpack and shoots down the trail as though a swarm of bees were after us. Before long, we're above the tree line. The rain has increased to a pelting clatter, and we can barely see the trail 10 feet in front of us. I pull my rain hood over my head and cinch it tight. Moose whimpers. Sorry, buddy, I tell him. There will be no shelter, no trees to break the wind until we reach the next hut over Lake of the Clouds. The higher we climb, the more the temperature drops. Without the trees to protect us, the wind rises to a sideways, steady howl. Oh, let's try that again. Without the trees to protect us, the wind rises to a sideways howl. I lean against it and hope that it keeps me up. With a steady wind, I can adjust my body to constantly battle the pressure. If the wind stops, I'd go tumbling. The trail becomes all rocks and boulders, slippery with lichen and rain. It's only 4.8 miles, or as a fifth grader says, 4 8/10 miles, between Mizpah and Lake of the Clouds. But it seems like an impossible distance as our pace slows to a crawl. A jagged arc of lightning cuts through the rain and fog. It flashes across the sky like a glowing warning finger. Moose lets out a high, frightened bark. Nobody should be above the tree line in lightning storms. in a lightning storm. Odds are you're the tallest object sticking out from the mountain. The weather has just turned from bad to dangerous. If I had been there with Lucas and his dad, there would have been no question about it. We would have turned around and gone back to the trees as fast as possible. I think we should go back, I shout. Sean doesn't answer, but quickens his pace. I need to find Denver, he says. His voice is low, urgent. His strides lengthen. His legs are long, too long. Behind me, Moose stumbles up a slippery boulder. I can't keep up, I yell. Sean is a couple of yards ahead of me and adding more distance between us fast. He doesn't stop. I can't tell if he hasn't heard me or if he just doesn't care, or if he doesn't care. The rain turns to hail. I tuck my head and scurry along as fast as I can, making sure that Moose is still with me. The chattering hail becomes a roar of clicking ice. I feel like I've stepped under a falling, frozen waterfall. I concentrate on my boots and putting one of them in front of the other. When I finally look up, Sean is gone. Ooh, chapter 25. Abandonment hits me harder than any slap of weather. I didn't want to admit it, but I was counting on Sean and Vandover to keep me safe. For their knowledge and food and gear and companionship to protect me for at least a little bit. Now both of them have disappeared. The wind and hail are relentless. All the energy drains out of me. Once again, I am alone in a storm. Grief comes, hard and fast as a bullet. I sit down on a rock, put my hand in my head. I miss my best friend. I'm sorry, Lucas, I whisper. I can't do this. Not without help. Not without you. I think about what had happened after the blueberry picking disaster. We patched things up and kept going with the list, but something felt broken between us. We had built a raft and floated down the Connecticut River, only to have it tumble apart as we were trying to land it. The night on Chimney Hill hadn't been spooky at all, but I forgot to zip up the tent door and we ended up covered in hundreds of tick and mosquito bites. It's dangerous. But it was when we were popping wheelies in the school parking lot that it really all fell apart. Lucas had mastered the one-wheeled trick almost immediately, but hours passed and all I had to show were dozens of scrapes and bruises on my elbows and knees. Maybe we should try again tomorrow, Lucas had said. I hopped on my bike for one last go. I pedaled as hard as I could, then jerked my handlebars up. The bike flew over my head, and I went sprawling, cracking the back of my helmet against the pavement. Lucas rushed over and bent down to pull me up. Don't help me, I snapped. I'm tired of you protecting me. You never let me get up myself or stand on my own 2 feet. Lucas drew back as if I had punched him in the face. Toe, that's not true. Sure it is. I struggled to my feet. Blood ran down my calf. Why do you even hang out with me? I've been nothing but bad luck since the day you met me. Lucas shook his head. I hang out with you because we have fun together. So what if bad stuff happens to us sometimes? Or maybe you like being the hero. I could feel my tailbone throbbing. Maybe you need me to mess up so you can fix everything. Maybe that's why you keep me around, so you can feel good about yourself. Lucas's shoulders straightened. He walked past me and picked up his bike. You know what? Maybe you are bad luck. Maybe it's time I started making new friends. And then Lucas had ridden away from me. He had not looked back. Oh, so we have another bear. So that was a flashback. Now we're going to flash forward. A chunk of hail smashes into my shoulder and brings me back to the rock where I'm sitting. I put my hands on my cheeks. Despite the wind and ice, they're warm. I realize I'm crying, and something snaps inside of me. Big, horrible sobs rack my chest and my lungs. I tighten my hands into fists around my hair. Alone. I am alone. I wait for Lucas's voice to come, to comfort me and tell me what to do. But instead, there's only silence. His voice is gone. Toby, get up, I tell myself. I'm speaking out loud in the rain. You can do this without Lucas. No, no, you can't, says the part of me that is small and cold and scared. Ooh, that reminds me of 11. You can't, you can't, you can't. I'm drowning in my doubt. I can't even get up to save myself. A furry snout burrows between my chin and my heart, and a long, stinky tongue licks my cheek. Hey, Moose. I put out my hand. I put out a hand blindly and pat his rain-drenched side. I close my eyes. I can do this, I tell myself. It should have been you instead of Lucas last summer. The awful voice of doubt is relentless. He was the stronger one, the better one. Well, that's weird. I wonder what that means. I fold my arms and tuck my hands under my armpits, rocking back and forth. Screw up, the voice whispers. I stare into the hail as it gathers around me. Something twists inside me. I'm not going to accept my bad luck anymore. Screwing up and giving up are two different things. Life is messy, like Denver and his brother's eye, or arsenic and the war, or my parents and their stupid divorce. But all those people keep on going, and I'm going to, too. You're worthless, the voice hisses. So what if you kept going? You lost your map. You ran out of food. You couldn't keep Moose from getting skunked. I shake my head, but I found my way again. I pointed in the right direction to Katahdin. I found food. I'm keeping Moose alive and clean and fed. I'm finally learning to trust myself. I rear back and scream with all of my might. So, I don't know if I can say that. I'll just zoom in. All right, get Toby's voice. So, blank you. I wait for a reply, but there is none. A chunk of hail slips past my hood and trickles down my neck. It's ice cold. Numbness creeps into my fingers and toes. Moose whines and nudges my face. He is shivering. I'm not sure I can save myself, but I'm going to save this scrawny mud of a dog if it's the last thing I do. I stand up, shake my pockets of hail off my backpack and my coat. It's time to start hiking. Ooh, that was a very complicated and complex chapter. Toby's got some demons that he's wrestling with.